Meanwhile, Russian forces are targeting the Black Sea coast.
Ukrainian military officials say airstrikes hit both residential buildings and port infrastructure today in Odessa and Mykolaiv. The attacks threaten a deal to resume grain exports from Ukraine, and our Holly Williams is there in central Ukraine and joins us now with more. So, Holly, what might today's attack mean for that deal?
Well, look, this is the second time that Ukraine says that Russia has hit its Black Sea ports since they agreed that deal last Friday. The deal, as you know, was to allow the shipment of more than 20 million tons of grain that is stuck here in Ukraine because of a Russian naval blockade. Now, that has helped push up global food prices to dangerous levels. The UN says that 345 million people are now marching to the brink of starvation, and Russia has been accused of using hunger as a weapon of war, although Russia denies that. Now, Ukraine, for its part, seems to want to push on with this deal and has even said that shipments of that grain could begin in the next few days. But I think what all of this goes to show is that this agreement is very fragile, and let's see if that grain actually gets exported and gets to the hundreds of millions of people who desperately need it.
And grain is just one of a couple of big topics that we're talking about. Officials from Russian state-controlled energy company Gazprom said yesterday that it would drastically cut gas deliveries to Europe through the Nord Stream pipeline. They blamed the reduction on a, quote, technical condition. When do those cuts go into effect, and how is the EU responding?
Well, look, Europe has repeatedly accused Russia of energy blackmail. The president of Ukraine, Vladimir Zelensky, has actually said that Russia is waging a, quote, gas war. Russia, as you said, says this is purely technical and maintenance issue. What I think the bottom line is this. Europe is enormously dependent on Russia for its energy needs. Last year, the EU got 40% of its gas from Russia. And for years, critics had been saying to Europe, this is not a good situation, because if you get into a problem like we have now, a war in Ukraine, and you want to sanction Russia, they could use energy and your dependence on them to retaliate. And then also it might make you less willing to impose sanctions on Russia because you're worried that they might retaliate. That is why we see the situation now where we have Europe scrambling to try to reduce its dependence on Russian energy.
So, Holly, is it at all possible that Russia could potentially cut off the gas supply to Europe completely?
You know, Vlad, I think you'd have to ask Vladimir Putin that question, and funnily enough, he's just not that forthcoming. But I think these are probably his considerations. Firstly, Russia's economy has been, badly damaged by sanctions from the US and the EU and other countries. Russia might say otherwise, but economists say it's been damaged, and they say that situation is only going to get worse. And secondly, Russia's economy is enormously dependent on its energy exports. So what you do see is Russia now apparently looking for other markets, other buyers for its energy products.
And all of these issues, Holly, we're talking about because Russia invaded Ukraine. And going back to the war, is the Russian military still making territorial gains in Ukraine?
Well, yeah, Jericka, what you said is so true. Just think about the kind of global ripples of this conflict, which, in terms of the territory it's actually offending is limited to this, this part of Eastern Europe. Here's the state of play when it comes to the war. Russia has seized swaths of territory in southern Ukraine, and that front line doesn't seem to be moving very much. In the east, the Russians are making progress, but just last week, the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff said that they had only progressed between 6 and 10 miles in the last 90 days, and he said that Ukraine was making them pay for every inch of territory that they seized. It's interesting. I was here when this invasion began, and a lot of people thought it was going to be a blitzkrieg. A lot of people thought that the Russians were going to seize Ukraine's capital, Kyiv, within days, and they didn't, in large part because of a much tougher resistance from Ukraine than nearly anyone thought was possible. Now, this has turned into a kind of grinding war of attrition. What the Ukrainians say is that they need more game-changing weapons from the US and its allies, things like the HIMARS, rocket systems that have a range of 50 miles that have done a lot of damage to the Russians. They say if they get more of those, they can stop just controlling the Russian assault and they can begin to fight back.
All right, Holly Williams on the ground for us in Ukraine. And Holly, certainly if President Putin ever accepts my phone call, I will absolutely ask him that. Let me know if you hear from him. Always great to see you, Holly. Thank you very much.